It's time for another one of our annual videos. This time it's going to be a list of books that we hope to tackle in 2021. This year we're picking 12 because, you know, one for each month.
That's true. And here's the thing. That's actually really smart. And a video ago with our goals, I did allude to the fact that I would like to, you know, actually read the books that I said I was going to read. So again, I'm alluding to a pile of possibilities.
Yes.
And in so many ways, this is one of them. So on that note, I'm going to start. And I actually, so this is an arc of The Beast, a dark, deep novel. The Beast is out now, obviously, because the novel came out in 2019. I did not read it at all in 2019, and I did not read it at all in 2020. I did like The Dark Deep, though. It's a story about a bunch of kids who stumble upon this place called The Dark Deep, and it makes things come to life that are in your head, and nobody knows how or why.
Scary.
So yeah, it's super, super crazy. So again, it's always been pegged as like the Stranger Things meets the Goonies. I enjoyed the first book a lot. I kind of want to know where else they can go. I am officially putting this on the, you know, whether it's part of 20, I'm also putting this on the DNF or die pile.
Nice.
Because it is an arc, and if it just doesn't scream at me, you know, and make it jump out of the page for me, and this is, then maybe no. And this is definitely going to be an interesting read.
My first book is a classic. It's A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. So the summary of this one is, Lucy Honeychurch arrives in Italy for the first time, dependent on a Baedeker travel guide and her stern chaperone, Miss Bartlett. As she explores Florence, she realizes the constraints of her middle-class upbringing and finds herself attracted to George Emerson, a young man also staying at the Pension Bertolini. Then an impulsive kiss and the confusion that follows prompts a sudden departure from the city. Back in England and engaged to the domineering Cecil Vyse, Lucy meets George again. Caught between social obligation and a suppressed desire for a different life, she must learn how to be true to herself. I am really looking forward to tackling this one. I have heard nothing but praise. I also know that there's a movie, and I'm pretty sure Helena Bonham Carter is in it.
Oh, hello.
So we might have to watch that after I read this book.
Alrighty, so I think this is finally going to be the year of Daniel Jose Older for me.
Nice.
And I'm going to start off with The Dactyl Hill Squad. So I have arcs of books 1 and 2.
Oh my gosh, you do?
Obviously, I have not read them from 2018 and 2019 because I'm me. But it's basically a bunch of kids who ride pterodactyls. And it's set in the Civil War. It's historical. It's set in the streets of New York as the Civil War rages.
Oh, nice.
And I have mentioned it before that I do not like historical fiction unless they involve big green scaly things.
Ah, look.
So this might actually be the middle grade sort of version or answer to my sort of like prayers. That is part 1 of my Daniel Jose Older year, and it's probably going to be my February as well.
So the book I'm going to mention is actually a 2020 book, and that is The Bright and Breaking Sea by Chloe Neal. Nice. It says on the back, it is a stunning seafaring fantasy starring a dauntless heroine in a world of magic and treachery. It is about Kit Breitling, who was rescued as a foundling, and she's raised in a home for talented girls. She rises through the ranks until she becomes one of the few female captains in Queen Charlotte's fleet. She has this magical affinity for the sea, too, which kind of makes her job a little easier. And then she's given a mission where she has to work together with Rian Grant. He is a Viscount, and he's also a veteran of the Continental War, but since Kit doesn't really know him, she doesn't know whether she can trust him. Unfortunately, they have to be allies or else everything is going to fall apart, and it sounds like it's going to be swashbuckling and fun and exciting, and I am always down for a good like seafaring adventure. I'm going to round up the middle grade books that I'm going to be reading this year, and I now have in my possession the hard copies of A Witch Come True and A Witch Alone, so books 2 and 3 of the Apprentice Witch series by James Nichol. Again, it's literally in the tradition of Kiki's Delivery Service, where you've got like a society that has witches that are accepted, and when you come of age, you have to go to a town and make your own kind of thing and be the witch of that town to satisfy whatever needs that town has that would require magic. Arian Wynn happens to be one of these witches who are sort of unconventional, and she moves to a town and makes something of herself. And because it does come in the tradition of Kiki's Delivery Service, you kind of almost feel okay after the end of the first book and leave it at that. But if you know there's a chance to find out more, why wouldn't you take it? Why wouldn't you take it? And that is a legit sort of like subgenre now of like a witch trying to make her way in the world, which is really a coming of age tale, which is really a female empowerment tale. And I'm just happy to like get around to that and see how that goes. Another 2020 release that I do want to read, because the sequel's already out too, is this Bleach light novel. It's called Campfire Own World. This is the first. This takes place after the ending of Bleach, so after the big war is fought, which they're now animating for television. I'm just like,
Oh boy, it's set after that final arc. Oh, hello.
So the back says, Tokunada Yashiro is elevated to the head of his clan after a slew of assassinations take out every other claimant to that title.
Oh.
And he has a plan to create a brand new Soul King.
Uh-oh.
So, because he's being ambitious about this, and this is not a good thing, in case you were wondering.
And because we actually know who the current Soul King is now, technically.
Yeah, it could basically start another war in that realm. However, there is one Soul Reaper who apparently has the key to possibly resolving this conflict, and
oh my
it
god,
happens
it's Hisagi.
to be the lieutenant of the 9th Division, Shuhei Hisagi, who is one of my favorite characters in Bleach. And I am ready to read this book.
Oh
It
boy.
sounds so good. I'm so excited.
Welcome to the gun show, children. Have a seat. This is going to be a bumpy ride.
Is
Alright. It is going to be what it is. Back to my year of Daniel Jose Older. We were actually at a joint signing between him and Bardugo, I think, at that particular night. And it was lovely and it was great. And his book Shadow Shaper had sort of come out, so we have our signed copy with the little post-it at said signing lines. Yeah, NYC 2017.
Yeah,
It's just super cool that he does that. I have not read it, but it's called Shadow Shaper. And Sierra Santiago is an artist. She was looking for a chill year, but that corpse crashes through her house and she's like, what the heck's going on?
Casual.
And, you know, her grandfather starts muttering like random stuff and she's like, how does this work? Eventually that leads her to discovering shadow shaping, which is a kind of magic that allows you to infuse ancestral spirits into art.
Ooh, fun.
Which I think is just like
That's a great
really
concept.
cool. And that's fresh,
Yeah.
right? Because, I mean, it's just as fresh as good necromancers that keep the dead
Yeah,
dead.
really interesting.
Channeling ancestral spirits into your art and therefore it having effects.
That's a cool concept.
I mean, we haven't seen any kind of art-related stuff like that since, like, that one captain from Black Clover where he just paints stuff and stuff comes to life. And now the Yamanaka clan, because he changed his name, and now they can draw stuff on
He didn't
scrolls
have
and beasts.
family
So
names.
exactly, now that he's got, because, you know,
I'm
whatever.
just saying.
So looking forward to that. This is my year
Yeah,
of Daniel
that's
Jose
gonna be really
Older.
fun, too.
And hopefully it gets me to all of his other stuff this year, too.
Yeah, he has a lot of stuff too.
Exactly.
My next book is still a 2020 release and it has a lovely cover. It is The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dow, and this one basically says, can the girl with the forbidden library and the alien who loves pop music work together to save the world? Sci-fi shenanigans with aliens and a whole like angle of like books and music. What could possibly, be better, honestly?
Okay. Alrighty, the Blaze Wrath games
Look,
by
more dragons.
Amparo Ortiz. So, I mean, the first line, like, Lana Torres has always preferred dragons to people, and who doesn't, really? This takes place in a world where they have something called the Blaze Wrath World Cup. So,
Ooh.
kind of like the Olympics type. Well, not the Olympics, but
Kind
it's
of
kind
sounds
of
like the Olympics.
But less every country has to send versus just anybody wants to join. I think can join. At least that's how I took it. It's a deadly sort of like relay race with dragons and their riders. So. You had me at that. I don't really need anything else. Like I
mean, you just need dragon riders.
But I just have dragon riders, and there's a World Cup, and then she just prefers dragons over people. I'm like, great, good, because people suck, and apparently dragons don't. So, well, maybe they do. It's just people suck more. I don't know. I don't care anymore. I'm reading this book. This is going to be a please don't let 2021 go away without me actually.
Yeah, I hope you read it.
That's
it
right.
It sounds really good.
Exactly.
My next one is a different genre now. We're going into historical romance, and this is Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. This is the first book in her A League of Extraordinary Women
Okay, cool.
series. And basically it says, a daring Oxford rebel takes on a powerful duke in a love story that threatens to upend the British social order. Listen, I am here for when people are not on the same side, and then they're kind of conflicting and butting heads, and then they end up, you know, seeing each other in a different light. Sucker for it. That's why
Ready
it's on my
for it.
list.
Alrighty, Emily Laybourne wrote a book called Berserker a couple of years ago, and it's centered around a young girl who comes from a line of berserkers. And what's interesting is she created some insane, you know, modern day applications of Viking lore where different Vikings have sort of like different powers. And of course berserkers are one of them. Some of them involve making ships, and the more you use these powers, the more a terrible toll sort of it takes on your body.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's not
right.
it has very little to do with self-preservation, because that's not the Viking way. It seems self-destructive, but Vikings don't care about that. In fact, the worst thing that can happen to you is to die of old age in your bed.
Oh yeah.
You do not go to heaven that way.
Yes.
Viking heaven.
They'd rather be fighting.
It's like there's so much glory in sacrifice. It's not even sacrifice. That's the thing. It's not called sacrifice. There's glory in the
just
pursuit
glory,
of
yeah.
glory. You know what I mean? And so this is set in the same universe. This time, I want to say decades, maybe a decade or so after the events of Berserker. This time, it's called Ransacker, and obviously that was most likely going to have something to do with the actual sort of lore. Okay, what powers does this new heroine. I don't know, that's a thing. I haven't read far enough into this thing to sort of tell. But because the lore was so gorgeous, so well woven, I'm like, I'm definitely gonna put some time into this. This is again going on the DNF or die pile because I do like feel like if it just doesn't speak to me, I'm happy to just keep Berserker in my heart and leave it at that.
My next book has won a lot of awards. It won a National Book Award. It has a Michael L. Prince Award. It also has a Pura Belver Award.
Damn.
And this book is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. It is about a young lady named Xiomara. She feels unheard and unable to hide in her Harlem neighborhood, but she secretly pours her dreams and frustrations onto the pages of her notebooks like prayers. When she's invited to join her school's slam poetry club, Xiomara doesn't know how she could ever attend without her religious mommy finding out. But even so, in the face of a world that may not want to hear her, she refuses to be silent. It sounds pretty powerful, and I've heard nothing but amazing things. I kind of want to do that whole like audiobook and physical book at the same time route with this one, because it's told in verse and the author herself reads it, so I am very much looking forward to checking this out.
All right, so mine is going to be Charlie Thorne, The Last Equation. Charlie Thorne happens to be a genius, a thief, and now it's time for her to save the world. So again, one of those superpowered heroines.
The spy one, right?
But it's kind of a spy one. Her super quick wit. I want to say alternate universe Shuri type girl, where she's just a genius, and at the same time, she's really just their only hope.
Another genre switch for me, a nonfiction book called The Library Book by Susan Orlean. Orlean chronicles the Los Angeles Public Library fire in 1986 and its aftermath to showcase the larger crucial role that libraries play in our lives. I have been interested in this book since I first heard what it was about. I have seen a couple of my friends read it and really like it, and I did want to read a little bit more nonfiction this year, so that fits into that, you know, sort of side goal, B goal, personally. Oh look, guess what?
Another dragon book. It's called The Novice Dragoneer, the first Dragoneer Academy novel by E.E. Knight. Came out in 2019, did not read it. It's about a girl named Lilith. She's an orphan. I think she ends up becoming sort of, but either way, if she's gonna end up like in the Dragon Academy school, and I want the Dragon Academy. Well, Dragoneer Academy anyway, and so I kind of want that. Again, don't need very little else. Also gonna be in the DNF or die pile because we don't know if it's gonna scream at me the way, I don't love every dragon book, but
most of them.
But every so often they will
there'll be a
speak to
good
me.
one.
Yeah.
My next one is a series finale, which I've had for a while, I just haven't read it yet, and that's Dark Dawn by Jay Kristoff. This is the last book in the Nevernight Chronicle, and I liked the first two books a whole lot. I actually loved them a whole lot. And the series centers around a character named Mia Corvier. Her family is brutally murdered, and she sees that happen as a child. Well, her father's brutally murdered, and her mother and her brother are imprisoned. And so in that book, she becomes an assassin and then goes to the Red Church in an attempt to learn how to be the best assassin ever so that she can enact revenge on the people who tore her family apart. And the series kind of continues on from there. At the end of the second book, a big thing goes down and we're all just like, well, what happens next? I've heard mixed things about the series finale, but I would like to finish it up and see how I feel about it overall and how it, you know, concludes Mia's story arc.
So this next book was a gift from 2019, which I said I would read in 2020 and totally did not. It's called Red Rising. So it is oopsie. So our sister's boyfriend was like, yeah, you know, you should read this. It's my favorite book, one of my favorite books ever. And it is. It's by Pierce Brown. I think it's set in Mars. That I'm not sure of. I'm pretty sure it is one of those sprawling space opera type deals.
That's what I heard.
Book one of a trilogy. I obviously has sentimental value, so if I DNF, I'm not going to get rid of it, maybe, because it is a gift. But it is going to be roughly on that pile of, if it doesn't speak to me, then it doesn't speak to me. But I do appreciate when
I mean, I would also like to read it.
Exactly. It's like, maybe it might not work for me, but it'll work for Alexa. So we'll see if this gift is cool, and then for me. And then we'll move on from there.
Another sequel that I would like to read is Wondersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is the second book in the Nevermore series. The first book opens with a young girl named Morrigan Crow. She's supposed to die by her 11th birthday, but instead gets rescued by this rather eccentric fellow named Jupiter North and spirited away to live at his hotel. He enters her in a series of tests to see if she's capable of attending a magic school, and it is a delightful and charming adventure. I'm super excited to get to the second book.
You had me at magic school, really, right? To be honest.
Speaking of magic schools,
Naomi Novik's A Deadly Education is also on my sort of like TBR. So this is the lovely arc that sort of we received. Not going to review it here, though, because several other people have said that I get all of it, but I kind of like the idea of a magic school where our main character goes to the magic school and pleasant luck surviving it when everything is trying to kill you.
Your classmates, the school, the
environment.
Spirits, you know, lots of things.
I just like magic school ideas. And I know Naomi Novik from reading the Temeraire series. Again, I don't like historical things unless
But
they
it has
involve big
dragons.
scaly things, preferably dragons. So I would like to see what her other work is like.
Another series, this one is a series starter, and I want to read it. It is A
Oh,
Discovery
yeah!
of Witches by Deborah Harkness. It's the first book in the All Souls trilogy. The only thing I actually know about it is that it's basically a witch and a vampire.
And yeah,
And
they have like
it's
a
set in
forbidden
Oxford.
love.
I want to read
There's-
it, and I also want to watch a TV show.
Exactly. So you know what? Let's do that. Let's. I think that's part of like, well, let's watch and see.
It just
how that
sounds
goes.
so. A tale of passion and obsession, the collision of magic, alchemy, and science, and the closely guarded secrets of an enchanted world.
You know what? I'm just gonna start the first episode tonight. That's how this is gonna work. This is going to be my second most important book on this pile because I could possibly enjoy this book more than anything
You might
else.
even like it more than
I
did.
would probably. Yeah, exactly. This is one of those things where I feel like if this is just the right kind of thing, because the way V. Schwab has sort of positioned herself is that she's sort of written stories that are in the wheelhouse of one of her, obviously, like influences, which is Neil Gaiman. And for the both of them to appreciate each other's work means they sort of are in each other's wheelhouses to some extent. And The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I can 100% imagine happening in a Neil Gaiman-esque kind of setting, which is obviously not even Neil Gaiman at all, but 100% V. Schwab. It centers around a young woman who in the 17th century is on the verge of getting married, and on the day itself makes a pact with the gods to get out of it, but times it wrong and ends up summoning a demon or devil instead, and that's the thing that she makes a deal with. And he gets her out of that marriage on that day by ensuring that she is no longer remembered by anyone she ever meets.
And gets to live forever.
And she gets to live forever. So how that plays out, Alexa has reviewed it several times. It is one of her top books of pretty much
It is my
all-
top book of
And
2020.
it was her top book of 2010. Probably one of your top books of all time, maybe.
Yeah,
I
it's
would
a
like
really
to
good
think. And to be honest, the other thing that excites me the most about reading this book is all of these little like post-its that Alexa has left, which is sort of like a new habit between us when we trade books. Is like she likes to write stuff, and I like reading them, so it's like we read it together. So it's
Aw,
kind of cool.
it is. Another 2020 release I'd like to tackle is Time of Our Lives, which is by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegeman Broca. They're actually a real-life married couple duo who writes YA contemporary
Lovely.
romance. This is the story of two individuals, Fitz and Juniper, and they are both on a sort of 10-day college tour type situation.
Got it.
They have very different views of what they want for college. Fitz wants to be close to home because he wants to help his mom, who is suffering from Alzheimer's, and Juniper, on the other hand, is like, I want to leave because there's too many people in my house. So they meet, and that sort of kind of affects the trajectory of their lives and their perspectives. And I love books like that, so I'm looking forward to checking that one out.
Awesome. Now for the most important book on my pile, because it's been now 3 years running since I've tried to read this. In the first couple of years, I have, and by couple of years, I mean the start of the first couple of years, so obviously 2018 and 2019, I have regaled Alexa with tales of how awesome the first two books were, and you totally have to read it. Alexa reads the first two books in 2020, loves it, devours this particular book, which is Obsidio, by Amy Kaufman and
Because I
Jay
had to know.
Kristoff, because she absolutely had to know what happened next. And now she's the one telling me I have to read this.
It made me cry.
And I am so behind.
And there's a scene in that book, there are two scenes in this book actually that I'm just like,
And if you recall Alexa's sort of like blurb about Obsidio a couple of videos ago, you would have seen how excited it was because I did not know that we were going back to Carenza. There was like a remnant left behind after they tried to escape the events of book one, which is an entire planetary colony is presumed to be wiped out, by the, direct or indirect actions, probably both, of an evil corporation. And the evil corporation was trying to eliminate all evidence and witnesses. So they were trying to kill the people fleeing towards like the next space station that was going to give them help. Book two is the events on that space station as the people from book one are trying, like, on the way. And that was its own sort of like crazy sort of madness because it sort of almost happened concurrently to some extent until the timeline sort of aligned. And then we've got Obsidio, where suddenly, after Alexa's blurb, it's like there are people left on Carenza, and I'm just like, oh my god, what does that mean? And so I have to read this now. Like, it's just, like, I cannot let 2021 go away without me reading this. Obviously, I can't get rid of it.
can't. I gave it to you.
If I do, first of all, it was a gift from her. Second of all, she loves it, so if I don't like it, she's gonna keep it.
Oh yeah.
So,
She already has a spot.
exactly. So it makes no sense for me to not love this book. I just have to, and because life has changed a little bit, I'm feeling pretty good about reading these books this year.
My last book is actually the first one that I plan to tackle in 2021, and it's Eva Evergreen's Semi-Magical Witch by Julie Ames.
Semi-magical.
So it says, Eva Evergreen is determined to earn the rank of Novice Witch before her 13th birthday. If she doesn't, she'll lose her magic forever.
Oh, no.
The only problem Eva only has a pinch of magic.
Oh no.
And to add
baby
insult to
girl.
injury, whenever she overuses her magic, she falls asleep. When she lands in the tranquil coastal town of Oteri, the residents expect a powerful witch, not a semi-magical girl. So Eva comes up with a plan. Set up a magical repair shop to help Oteri and prove she's worthy. She may not have a lot of magic, but her semi-magical fixes repair the lives of the townspeople in ways they could never have imagined. Will Eva's bit of magic be enough when the biggest magical storm in history threatens the town she's grown to love?
I'm crying already.
So
Why am
charming. And I'm so excited to read it. And then they released the cover of the sequel recently. Very pretty. So I'm super excited to get to this. It gives me Kiki's delivery service vibes, which is what we're going for in this household.
I am so emotional right now.
I am very much looking forward to tackling this. I'm pretty sure if I love it enough, I'll probably just be like, here, have at it.
It's beautiful.
So I cannot wait to read it. Plus this cover is so great. Anyway, those are the 24 books total, 12 each-ish, that we want to hopefully read in 2021. We're not going to hold ourselves to that because we're not always the greatest at sticking to TBRs, hence the possibility pile.
Tune in for more of that as we move along.
As we move along in the year.
That's right.
Anyway, do you guys have any books that you are excited to read in 2021? I would love to know.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
actually curious.
Yeah, like what are the books that you're like, 2021 must not elapse until I have, you know,
Like,
without me reading these books.
It could be anything from like older titles like Macky that he has had on his TBR for a
and
while.
I don't mean books like you're definitely gonna read them like, let's say, like Chain of Iron for like that's not even gonna, that's why that's not on this pile. Because first, that's like a...
Look how bold you are. Last year you put Chain of Gold on your pile.
Exactly. And in this case, I'm just like, it's gonna happen. It's totally
So
gonna
let us
happen.
know. And if you have actually got any of these on your TBR and want to read when we read, that would be fun too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Anyway, we'll see you guys in our next video.
Bye.